My father sent me a text that should have broken me for the last time. He told me not to come to the family reunion. He said they were only inviting the successful ones this year. Then he twisted the knife deeper. He said someone with my arrest record would ruin the whole night. What makes that message evil is this: the arrest record was never really mine. I took that fall for my brother when he stole more than $500,000 from our family company. I lost my career. I lost my reputation. I lost the man I was supposed to marry. I spent 4 years working 3 jobs to pay back money I never stole, while the people I saved treated me like I was the disgrace. But my family made one mistake. They thought the story ended with me broken. They did not know my grandfather had spent those same 4 years building a case in silence. Bank records, audio recordings, forensic reports, witness statements. He died 7 weeks ago. His will was set to be read on the exact same night as the reunion, in the exact same ballroom, in front of the exact same people who erased me. They thought they were gathering to celebrate the successful ones. They had no idea they were walking into a public reckoning. If you already know what it feels like to be blamed for someone else's sin, then like this video right now. Subscribe if you believe the truth always comes due. And tell me in the comments if you have ever been the one person in the family they expected to bleed quietly. I read those comments. I remember them. And tonight I need you with me, because what happened next changed every single life in that room. That text came in at 11:47 on a Thursday night. I was already in bed. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I picked it up. I read the words once, then twice, then a third time because part of me still thought I had to be misunderstanding it, but I was not. My father meant every word. Do not bother coming. Only the successful ones. Your arrest record would ruin the whole night. I set the phone back down face up and stared at the ceiling until nearly sunrise. Not crying, not moving, just hearing the same sentence over and over in my head. Your arrest record. As if I had built it for myself. As if I had not carried it for him. I am 33 years old. I live in a studio apartment on Morrison Street. 1 room, 1 narrow closet. 1 window that sticks when it rains. Rent is $1,285 a month. And every time I pay it, I still feel that old panic in my chest. Because for 4 years, my life has been numbers and survival and choosing which bill could wait another 48 hours. The dress I wore that night was hanging on the closet door while I stared at that text. Burgundy, simple, cheap enough that I should have felt guilty buying it. I bought it anyway 3 days after he sent the message because something in me had already decided I was going. Not because I was invited, because I was done disappearing. On my refrigerator, there is a thank you card from a student named Brianna. It has been there for years. She gave it to me back when I still had a career and a future, and people said my name with respect. She wrote that I changed her life. She wrote that she was going to college because I believed in her when nobody else did. Next to it is a picture of me and my grandfather from my promotion celebration in 2019. We are both smiling. There are sunflowers behind us. On the back, he wrote that he was proud of me and that I was going to do great things. For a long time, that picture felt like proof of a life I lost. I did not know yet that it was also proof that at least one person had seen the whole truth. By the time my father sent that text, my charges had already been dismissed. Legally, I was clear. But dismissed is not the same as restored. It does not give you back your name. It does not make former colleagues look you in the eye again. It does not make interviewers forget your background check. It does not bring back the fiancé who walked away because he could not handle the whispers. It does not erase the way your own family starts speaking about you like a problem they survived. That is the part people do not understand about being the scapegoat. Even when the fire goes out, the smoke stays on you, and my family had spent 4 years making sure it did. I drive a 2009 Honda Civic with too many miles and a passenger door that only opens right if you lift the handle twice. I work as a substitute teacher now. Some days I make enough to breathe. Some days I come home and do math at my kitchen counter, and wonder if this is really how the rest of my life is going to look, because I saved the wrong person. 6 years earlier, I had a corner office at Beaufort Academy. I was assistant principal and director of financial aid. I made $78,000 a year. I had a scholarship program I loved. I had students who trusted me. I had a fiancé. We were planning a wedding with sunflowers and a jazz band. I had a window that looked out at a magnolia tree, and a grandfather who told everyone I was the best thing our family had produced in a generation. Then one Saturday night my father called and told me to come to the house. Family only. Do not tell Marcus. Do not tell anyone. I walked into that kitchen at 8:09. My life was over by 8:41. My parents were already seated at the oak table. My brother Terence was there too. He would not look at me. My mother had been crying. My father had that look he always got when he wanted something ugly done quietly. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were fake invoices, dozens of them, shell vendors, fabricated payments. Missing money, $520,000 gone from Patterson and Sons, our family company. The audit was coming. If the auditors found the hole, then Terence was going to prison. The company could lose its license. Employees could lose their jobs. My pregnant sister-in-law would have a husband behind bars. Their little boy would grow up visiting his father through glass. That is how they framed it. Not your brother stole $500,000. Not your brother committed fraud. Not your brother is responsible for this. They framed it as a choice between saving the family or destroying it. Terence spoke like a man drowning. He said he only needed time. He said he thought he could put the money back. He said he had meant to fix it before anyone noticed. My mother grabbed my hand and asked if I wanted my nephew visiting his daddy in prison. My father looked me in the eye and said I had access to funds nobody would question right away. The scholarship fund, money for students, money I had sworn to protect. He said I could move it temporarily, just until Terence repaid it. 6 months, quietly. Nobody ever has to know. I remember saying the word embezzlement. My mother corrected me and called it borrowing. That one word should have told me everything. But families like mine are built on moral sleight of hand. They rename betrayal until it sounds like duty. They call sacrifice love when only one child is being asked to bleed. I should have stood up and walked out. I did not. I looked at the ultrasound picture on their refrigerator. I looked at my nephew's smiling face in a frame by the sink. I looked at my brother who would not meet my eyes. Then I asked the only question that mattered. When do you pay me back? By March, they said, 6 months, and when it is over you tell everyone the truth. My father reached across that table and shook my hand. He gave me his word. That was the last honest thing I ever expected from him. A few days later, I sat alone in my office before sunrise. The school was quiet. The banking portal was open on my computer. I stared at the screen for 11 minutes before I moved the money. $520,000 from a scholarship fund I had spent years building into Patterson and Sons' operating account. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I was saving jobs. I told myself I was protecting children. I told myself family did not ask this unless there was no other way. The transfer completed. A confirmation number appeared. I took a screenshot and saved it in a folder I labeled temporary. I never deleted it. That screenshot became the timestamp of my destruction. For a few weeks I kept believing March would come and Terence would fix it. Then the excuses started. Cash flow issues. Soon. Another month, trust me. By January, the district announced a fiscal audit. By March, the auditor emailed me asking to reconcile the scholarship fund. I called Terence again and again, 47 times in 1 week. He finally answered on the 48th call and said he did not have it. That was it. Not I am sorry, not I will make this right, just I do not have it. I called my parents. No answer. I called him back. Voicemail. That was the first night I understood the truth. They were not trying to save the family anymore. They were trying to save him. And if I had to be buried in the process, then so be it. The next morning I sat across from an auditor and my principal while they pulled up the transfer records. They asked me to explain the unauthorized movement of funds. My phone buzzed in my lap, a text from Terrence. "I am sorry, I do not have it." I turned the phone face down, and I said it was me. I said I took the money. I said it was for personal use. I said it was my decision. You need to understand something here because this matters later. That confession was the moment the lie became official. It gave the system what it needed. It gave my family cover. It gave my brother freedom. It gave everyone a simpler story to believe. A greedy administrator steals from students. That story made sense to people. The truth was uglier. Families do not like ugly truth. A week and a half later, 2 police officers came to my apartment in the morning and arrested me in front of my neighbor. I still remember the metal of the handcuffs. I still remember how bright the hallway looked. I still remember thinking that if I kept breathing 1 second at a time, maybe I would somehow wake up from it. At the station, my attorney laid out the options. I could fight it and probably lose because the confession and the bank records were enough, or I could take a deferred prosecution agreement. Resign immediately, repay the full amount, stay on probation, finish the terms, and the charges would be dismissed. I took the deal because there was no road in front of me that did not lead through ruin. To make the first payments, I emptied my savings, cashed out retirement early. Took out personal loans so large I could barely look at the numbers on the paperwork without feeling sick. I signed anyway. Then I resigned from Beaufort Academy. The paper ran a story about financial irregularities. That phrase still disgusts me. Financial irregularities. Like my life had simply developed a minor administrative wrinkle. 2 weeks after that, my fiancé left. Marcus said he loved me, but he could not do this. He could not build a future while people whispered. He could not stand beside someone carrying this kind of scandal. He put the ring on my counter and walked out. I did not stop him. I think something in me had already gone numb by then. My last day at the school, I arrived before dawn so I would not have to face anyone. I packed up my office in silence. In the bottom drawer, I found a card from Brianna. The same one that is on my refrigerator now. I sat in my car holding it and cried because it was proof that there had been a version of me once who mattered in good ways. Then came the years I still struggle to talk about. Substitute teaching by day, tax prep during season, grocery deliveries at night, loan payments so brutal they swallowed everything. Store-brand pasta, gas station coffee, old shoes with worn-down soles, and meanwhile my brother thrived, promotions, raises, vacations, boat pictures. A bracelet for his wife that cost more than some of my monthly rent payments. I know all of that because my father kept mentioning his success at the rare family gatherings I was still allowed to attend before even those invitations stopped coming. He said Terrence was doing so well, said the company was lucky to have him, said it with pride, said it in front of me. Nobody ever said thank you to the daughter who saved the business by destroying herself. That alone would have been enough to break something permanent in me. But the part that nearly finished me was what happened in secret. In June of 2021, I went to my grandfather's house and told him everything. I had not planned to. I had not wanted him to know. I walked into his kitchen and fell apart instead. I told him about the invoices, the transfer, the arrest, the deal, the loans, the resignation, the wedding that was not happening anymore. The family promise that had dissolved into silence the moment I became useful enough to sacrifice. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that made me look up so fast my chair scraped the floor. He said he already knew. I thought maybe I had heard him wrong. I had not. He told me he had helped with the company audit as volunteer oversight the year before. He had seen the digital fingerprints. He had recognized the fake vendors. He had suspected Terrence early. And then he had stepped back because he wanted to see what my parents would do when the truth demanded a cost. He wanted to see who they would protect. He found out. Then he made a decision that would change everything. He hired a private investigator the next day. He said that maybe I could not clear my name right away. Maybe the system would take years. Maybe the family would lie forever. But one day the truth would need evidence strong enough to crush denial in public. So he started collecting it, not one document, not one recording, everything. He told me to repeat the whole story from the beginning with dates and times, and every sentence I remembered. We sat at his kitchen table for 4 hours while he wrote. That was the night my grandfather quietly went to war for me, and I did not even understand the scale of it yet. For the next 4 years I visited him constantly. Tuesday afternoons, Thursday evenings, Sunday mornings. Everyone thought I was just being a devoted granddaughter. What they did not know was that those visits were case meetings. The investigator recovered deleted files from company systems, fake invoices tied back to Terrence's computer, metadata, account access logs, messages between family members, spending patterns. He traced salary increases and luxury purchases. He tracked every job I applied for and every rejection that followed my background check. He built a timeline so detailed it could choke a lie to death. But the most devastating evidence came from a bar. And this is where the middle of the story turns from tragic to unforgivable. Because until then part of me still believed my brother was weak, cowardly, selfish, but maybe ashamed, maybe broken by what he had let happen. I was wrong. In June of 2022, the investigator followed him to a bar in Charleston where Terrence met a friend. They drank and talked too loudly, and my brother bragged. He bragged about me taking the fall. He laughed about my life being destroyed. He called me stupid but useful. He joked that while I was probably eating ramen, he was buying his wife a Cartier bracelet with his bonus. The first time my grandfather played that recording for me, I felt my whole body go cold. Not because I was shocked anymore. Shock had burned out of me long before that. But because the recording stripped away every last excuse. He did not just let this happen, he enjoyed the arrangement. He was living on the comfort my suffering bought him. That was the moment something inside me hardened, not into hatred, into clarity. After that, I stopped asking myself why they did it. The better question was what I would do when the moment finally came. And still the years dragged on. I paid the final restitution in late 2024. I remember the exact screen, the exact amount. The exact silence in my apartment afterward. I sat on my bathroom floor and cried because it was over and because it was not over at all. I had paid every dollar, but I still had the debt. Still had the record, still had the damage. 2 weeks later, Terrence posted his boat. That image hit me harder than the arrest had, harder than the resignation. Harder than the grocery store encounters where former coworkers turned away. Because the boat was proof. Proof that while I had been drowning under a punishment built from his crime, he had been celebrating. My grandfather kept building the file. Then he got sick. Pancreatic cancer. The kind of diagnosis that changes the air in a room the second you hear it. He lived almost 2 years after that. Long enough to finish what he started, long enough to revise his will. Long enough to tell his attorney exactly how this had to unfold. In January of 2026, I sat with him in hospice. He was weaker than I had ever seen him. His hand felt smaller in mine. His voice was thin but steady. He told me the will would be read at the reunion in March, in front of everyone. No private meeting, no quiet distribution of assets. No chance for my parents to spin the story afterward. He wanted witnesses. He wanted them all seated under chandeliers and banners and family pride when the truth opened its mouth. He squeezed my hand and told me they would try to rewrite the story once he was gone. He said that public truth was the only kind they could not smother. He died a week later. At the funeral, I sat in the back. My brother sat near the front with his wife and children. My parents received condolences like respectable mourners. People spoke about family legacy and dignity and generosity. No one sat beside me. I heard a relative refer to my scandal in a whisper as though I were not standing right there. I left early and went to the cemetery alone. I thought the funeral was the last cruelty I would endure before maybe finding some private peace. Then 2 weeks later, my father sent the text. "Do not come, only the successful ones. Your arrest record will ruin the night. That was when the story stopped being about survival. It became about return. A few days after the text, a certified letter arrived from my grandfather's attorney. It said my presence was legally required at the reading of the will. Same date as the reunion. Same ballroom. Failure to appear could affect inheritance. Inside the envelope was a key to a safety deposit box. I sat in my car holding that key for 11 straight minutes. Because suddenly, I knew two things at once. My grandfather had left me something important. And whatever it was had been prepared before he died, with the kind of care that meant he trusted no one else to touch it. When I went to the bank, I was led into a vault room and left alone with the box. Inside were sealed envelopes, a letter in his handwriting, a USB drive labeled Evidence Complete File, and my grandmother's pearl earrings. I read his letter in that little room with my hands shaking so hard I had to set the paper down twice. He told me he had watched every lie and every theft, and every moment they chose comfort over truth. He told me that the day would be difficult, but I would not face it empty-handed. He told me he loved me. Then I put the USB drive into my laptop. There were folders upon folders, forensic reports, audio, bank records, texts, affidavits, everything. I clicked the bar recording. And for the second time in my life, my brother's voice changed everything. She is stupid but useful. I sat in that bank room and listened all the way through. Then I listened again. After that I went home and prepared. And now we get to the night itself. The night they thought was theirs. I visited my grandfather's grave first. I wore the burgundy dress. I put on my grandmother's pearls. I stood by his headstone and thanked him for seeing me when no one else would. Then I drove to the Charleston Harbor Hotel and parked on the 3rd level. I sat in the car for a few minutes before I went in, not because I was afraid exactly. Fear had changed shape by then. It was no longer fear of them. It was fear of feeling everything all at once when the truth finally landed. When I entered the Sapphire Ballroom, the reunion had already started. Chandeliers, white linens, family foundation banner. Photo displays running along one wall. I walked over to the timeline display and counted. I appeared in 8 family photos, all of them from before 2021. After that, there were none. They had literally edited me out of the visible history of the family. That should have hurt me more than it did. Instead, it made me strangely calm. Because when people work that hard to erase you, it means your existence still bothers them. And if it still bothers them, then you are not as powerless as they want you to believe. My mother spotted me first. She came over looking like she had seen a ghost. She said she did not think I would actually come after my father's text. I told her I had received a legal notice from Grandpa's attorney. She tried to minimize it, said he probably left me something small, a token. Then she saw the pearl earrings. I watched recognition flash across her face. That was the first crack, not the last. By the time everyone was seated, there were 73 people in the room. My brother was at the bar acting like a man who had never had to fear consequences. My father looked relaxed. My mother looked strained. I sat in the back and waited. Then the attorney arrived. Briefcase in hand, he found me with his eyes, gave one small nod, nothing dramatic, but it steadied me. At a few minutes before 7, he stepped to the podium and said he needed everyone's attention for a legal proceeding in accordance with my grandfather's final wishes. The room changed instantly. Conversations stopped, chairs shifted, people sat down. My father smiled at first like this was some formality before dinner. Then the attorney took out 3 envelopes and placed them in view. Estate distribution, evidence, personal delivery for Terrence Patterson, that was the second crack. You could feel it, not because anyone understood yet. Because everyone knew suddenly that this was not normal. He began with the estate, total value over $4 million. Then he announced the distribution, 85% to Verna Patterson. The room did not gasp right away. First there was silence, the kind so deep it feels like the air itself has paused. Then chaos, questions, voices, disbelief, my brother on his feet. My father objecting. My mother turning in her chair to stare at me like I had somehow engineered a miracle from the back table. But the attorney was calm. He explained that I now held the largest individual stake in Patterson and Sons because my grandfather's shares were mine. That should have been the bombshell. It was not. It was only the fuse. Then he read my grandfather's statement. He said I had sacrificed my career and reputation to protect the family from a fraud I did not commit. He said I had carried a burden that was never mine. He said I had paid a debt I never owed. He said the company was mine now because I had earned it. That was the first moment tears hit me, not because of the money. Because after years of being treated like the family stain, someone had finally said the truth out loud in front of all of them. Then the attorney reached for the evidence envelope. And the room got still again. My uncle asked what fraud he was talking about. The attorney said the report would clarify. Staff began handing out copies of a forensic summary to every adult in the room. I watched my father take one. I watched my mother's hands start trembling before she even opened it. I watched my brother go pale. Then the attorney read, systematic embezzlement, $520,000, fraudulent invoices, Terrence James Patterson, digital forensics, deleted files. Personal accounts. And then my name entered the summary as the person who moved school scholarship funds in order to conceal the theft temporarily. Heads turned toward me. But this time it felt different. For years those looks had carried judgment. Now they carried dawning horror. The attorney went through the timeline. He listed the amount I repaid, the loans I took, the interest I absorbed, the salaries Terrence collected, the luxury purchases made during the exact years I was working myself numb to repay his theft. Then he mentioned the bracelet. Nicole's hand went to her wrist without thinking. That tiny movement is burned into my memory, because that is when she knew. Then he mentioned the boat, and then he said there was audio evidence. He placed a speaker on the podium. In that moment, the entire room felt suspended. Even the children had gone quiet. My brother looked like a man waiting to hear the sound of his own life collapsing. Then the recording played. My brother's voice filled the ballroom. Not denying, not regretting, laughing. My sister took the fall. She is stupid but useful. Verna is probably eating ramen. I wish I could tell you the room exploded immediately. It did not. The first thing that happened was silence, complete silence. Because there is something uniquely horrifying about hearing cruelty in the speaker's own voice. It removes every possible refuge. No misquote, no misunderstanding, no family spin. Just naked contempt. Then Nicole stood up and left with the children. Then people began turning toward my parents. Then the real unraveling began. My uncle demanded to know if they knew. My mother started crying and said they were trying to protect the family. My grandmother stood and said they had protected their son by destroying their daughter. I had never heard a room turn against itself so fast, and still there was one envelope left. The attorney handed the final letter to Terrence. He gave him a choice. Read it privately and leave or have it read aloud. I spoke for the first time all night and said to read it aloud, because if I had learned one thing by then it was this. Shame does its dirtiest work in private. If truth is going to cleanse anything, it has to be dragged into the open where no one can put it back in a drawer. So the attorney read my grandfather's letter to my brother. He said he had watched Terrence take promotions while I worked 3 jobs. He said he had watched him buy a boat while I ate store-brand pasta. He said he had given him years to come clean and he had done nothing. Then he laid out 2 options. Confess publicly within 48 hours. Resign, repay me, or face criminal action with the evidence already prepared. My brother said yes so quietly it barely sounded human. That was the moment the story I had been forced to carry for 4 years finally shifted, not because he suffered enough. Nothing could make those years disappear. But because for the first time he was the one sitting in the center of public consequence while I sat in the back and watched. After the attorney left, the room was in chaos, people crying, whispering, confronting each other. some staring at me like they were seeing an entirely different person than the one they had dismissed for years. I walked to the podium and waited. Eventually, the room quieted. Then I told my story, not the neat version, the full one. I told them about the night at the kitchen table, about the 6-month promise, about the transfer, about the arrest, about the deferred prosecution agreement, about the loans and the jobs and the wedding that never happened, about the text my father had sent me 2 weeks earlier. I asked them if they understood what it meant to tell your daughter she would ruin the night with an arrest record she took to save the son who actually committed the crime. I told them Grandpa Jack was the only one who had seen me clearly through all of it. Then I said the thing I had needed to say for years. I said I was done being the family embarrassment. Done being erased. Done apologizing for crimes that were never mine. Then I walked to the photo wall and removed the picture of me and my grandfather. Just that one, the one with the sunflowers. I put it in my purse and left the rest of the family history hanging there without me. That felt right. At the door, my grandmother stopped me and invited me to Sunday dinner. Just me, pot roast. 5:00. It was the first gentle thing I had been offered by family in years. I told her I would be there. Then I left. I got to my car and closed the door and finally broke. Not because I was weak, because release has to go somewhere. I cried with my forehead against the steering wheel for a few minutes while that photo sat on the passenger seat beside me. Then I wiped my face and drove home and slept 9 straight hours for the first time since 2020. The next day my phone was full. Missed calls, emails, messages from relatives who had no idea. Messages from people who apparently suspected something had always been wrong. My mother texted that we needed to talk. I did not give her that access. My brother posted a confession later. Public. Shame-soaked, necessary. The newspaper ran the story. Former colleagues apologized. My old principal admitted they had failed me. Then came the inheritance transfer. Then the board calls. Then the company. Then the strange, unreal process of rebuilding a life in the same place where it had been dismantled. Months later, I was sitting in the CEO office of the company that had almost destroyed me. Revenue was up. We created a scholarship fund. We put ethics controls in place. I paid off the last of my loans. I bought a home. I started dating someone kind. My arrest record was expunged. My brother sent monthly repayments without notes. My mother tried. My father barely did. Some family ties healed. Some never will. People like tidy endings. They want the truth revealed, the villain punished, the heroine restored. They want the credits to roll over a clean sense of justice. That is not how this felt. What hit hardest in the end was not the money, not the company, not even the public vindication. It was a letter from Brianna, the student whose card had sat on my refrigerator through all those ruined years, wrote to tell me she had always known I was innocent. She said the people who tried to erase me had failed. She said I was still changing lives. I read that letter twice and put it in a folder with every other message from students and people who remembered who I had been before the scandal tried to rename me. That folder mattered more than the inheritance ever could, because this whole story was never really about money. It was about being seen. That is what my grandfather gave me in the end. Not just proof, not just justice, witness. He made sure I would never again have to wonder whether I had imagined the cruelty. He made sure there would be records, voices, dates, files, facts. He made sure the truth would outlive him and reach me even after he was gone. That kind of love is devastating. Because once someone finally sees you clearly, then every person who chose not to becomes impossible to excuse. So when people ask if it was worth it, I still do not have a simple answer. Was it worth losing 4 years of my life to save my brother from prison? No. Was it worth learning exactly who my family was when the cost became personal? No. Was it worth what it took to understand my own strength? Maybe that is the wrong question. Maybe the real question is this. What do you do after they try to bury you under a lie and you survive long enough to hear the truth spoken aloud? For me, the answer is simple now. You stop asking for permission to exist in the story. You write the next chapter yourself. My name is Verna Patterson. I am 33 years old. I am not the family embarrassment. I am not the arrest record they used to silence me. I am not the daughter they got to sacrifice and forget. I am the woman who paid every dollar. I am the witness they could not erase. I am the granddaughter one honest man believed all the way to the end. And if you are carrying blame that was never yours, then listen to me carefully. Document everything. Save every message. Tell one person the truth. Do not let people rename your suffering until you start calling it duty. And do not mistake delayed justice for dead justice. Sometimes it is just gathering receipts. If this story stayed with you, then do not leave quietly. Like this video right now. Subscribe because stories like this matter, and I have more to tell. And in the comments, I want you to write one thing. The truth always comes due. If you have ever been blamed, erased, betrayed, or forced to carry what someone else should have carried, then write it. I read those words, I see them, and maybe someone else scrolling tonight needs to know they are not crazy either, because that is how it starts. One truth, one witness. One person refusing to disappear. And sometimes that is all it takes to bring an entire room down.